Right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to run through Estimator Express, and I want to show you how easy it is to be able to create your own job, go from start to finish, and then be able to fire out that quote to your client. Okay, the first thing to speak about before anything else, okay, and it's usually a question that comes at the very end, is how much does the software cost and which one would be best for me? All right, so the software comes at 3 different versions. We've got the core, the plus, and the premium. Now the core version, that will do extensions and renovations. The plus will do extensions, renovations, loft conversions, plumbing and heating. And then the premium, that will do all of that combined. Okay, plus new build housing. Okay, now how much does it cost? All 3 packages can be purchased in 2 ways. Okay, you can go for a yearly subscription or you can go for a lifetime license. Now the yearly subscription on the core is £399 a year, excluding the VAT. That's a one-off payment. The plus, it's £499, and for the premium, it's £599. We do have a deal going on at the moment, so what will happen is if you were to purchase our software this month, you would be granted additional months. Okay, that could be, I believe it's up to 3 months, or it is 3 months. Okay, so if you were to purchase the software, you would not be renewing until April 2022. Okay. From there, we then have the lifetime license. So the core version is £999, excluding the VAT. The plus version is £1,299, excluding the VAT. And the premium is £1,699, excluding the VAT. And what we have on at the moment is up to a 15 to 20% discount off of the software as well. Okay. Now, pros and cons of both. Annual subscription is going to be the same price every year. Okay, so if you start at $399, it's going to be $399 in a year or 15 months, so on and so forth. Lifetime license, once you've paid for the first year, okay, once you paid for this lifetime license, you get support and updates for 12 months. Okay, after that, we give you a call and say, would you like your support and updates to continue? If you said no, software works anyway, and you just have to update it yourself. If you said yes, it works out at roughly £18 a month, excluding the VAT. Okay, and that will just get you updates, ongoing training, and any other questions that you may have or need with the software as well. Okay, it works out that with the subscription, if you used our software for 3 years, you'll then be paying more than the lifetime license would have been. Okay, and going into the 4th year, you absolutely will be paying more. Okay, so it might just be a worth longevity versus funding at the moment. Okay, so I hope that answers any of the questions about the cost of the software and the versions. Now, going into the software itself, this is going to be your home page. You can see your recent work down the left-hand side. So you've got pages and you can see your previous jobs. Then you've got create new job or create new group of jobs. Difference between the two, that's going to be a brand new job from the get-go. Create new group of jobs, that is you essentially building up a year or a catalog of jobs that you're going to be working upon. Okay, because what the software will do is going to build you up a Gantt chart to tell you how long the job's going to take. Okay, and we're going to see that in the software as well. So what you might want to do is if you've got 3 jobs back to back kicking off, or one's going to be starting next week, one's going to be starting 2 months from now, one's going to be starting 5 months from now. So you've got the last month rolling over for the new guys to go in and start the next job on. Okay, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to click here, select the jobs that you know that you're going to be working on over the next 3, 6, 8, 10, 12 months, and they're going to just list all those build phases side by side to tell you, okay, then this is how your year is going to look when it comes to the work. That will give you some great future planning. Okay, it also allows you to take more control over your finances as well if you think, okay, Christ, what's happening in a couple of months? Because all the reports from each individual job are going to be pumped into that report and that group of jobs as well. Okay, over on the left-hand side, you've then got your library. If I click the word library, it's going to drag everything over to the screen for me. Okay, and what I can do here is I can see my price books, my favorite merchants, profit and inflation, specifications, and down here we've got our reports. Okay, brief description on the reports. this is really dependent on how you want your information to be given to you at the very end. Now, this isn't the quote. The quote will always be updated at the very end of the job. Okay, and once you do your quote first time round, it's going to be saved in that process every time going forward. Okay, so you only have to think about that one once. Whereas with your reports, when you're at the very end of the job, you might want to look at what materials are going to be used. So you can click this one here, and you can see whether or not our quote or our report format is going to be good enough for you. And it's set up as it's going to tell you the build phase on the left-hand side. It's going to tell you everything to do with that build phase. So that's going to be trade, material, and plant. How much it's going to cost and how you pay for it, whether it's going to be each or per hour or day or week, depending on what you're going to be renting, who you're getting it from or who it's going to be, that merchant's code as well, that product code, and then it's going to tell you exactly how much you need to order and how much it's going to cost. Okay, so that's one of the reports at the very end of the job, and you're going to be able to see whether or not it can help you. Okay, if you're not happy with that, come in here and you can just swap around, drop it, change it. You can even pull in when the date required to order will be. So that might be something you want to pop in there as well. Okay, so it's entirely up to you. Back to the library. We've then got your main headings. Okay, so your overhead, profit, and inflation. Now, from the very beginning, the software is going to have a 15 to 20% markup on your material, your labor, your plant, your subcontract, and your sundry items. Okay, and we break the software down into these 5 sections. Okay. Next to that, we then have inflation as well that you can kick off. We've got it as a default 12 weeks, but you might want it after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on what the market's like at the moment. You might just want to cover yourself. Okay, so you have that ability as well. Okay. Going back to the library, we then have our prices on the left-hand side. So if I hop into labor first off, we're going to be able to see that we've already input all the tradesmen for you. Okay, so this is your bricklayer, 2 joiners, 2 mates, joiner and a mate, decorators, plasterer and a mate, and so on. Okay, if you want to be able to change any of these prices, all you've got to do is just double click, and this box is going to come up in the screen. Now, what you can see here is that we've got a unit cost of £31.25. And we've got a unit of purchase is by the hour. So what we're doing is you're paying you guys by the hour at the moment with our software. Don't fret, okay, because the likelihood is you're either going to be paying them by the square meter or you're going to be paying them by the day, okay? So what we're doing is straight away with the software, we're saying, okay, that at £31.25 an hour, he's going to be £250 a day. So we're dividing your working day up by 8, and the software is going to do the rest of the work for you. Okay, when it comes to square meterage payments, especially on plasterers or something like that, okay, that can be tweaked inside the job itself. Okay, but if I wanted them to be £200 a day, just change that to £25. Click OK, that's now 25, and it's time stamped it to today, at today's date and time, telling us, okay, that's the last time you changed that price. Okay. From here, we can then move on to your plant. Terribly sorry if you can hear ringing in the background. That's somebody just calling in on my work phone. I'm terribly sorry about this. Okay. So what we can do then is we can start looking at our rental costs. All right. So we've got your acro props, skip ramps, if that's going to be something that you're going to be wanting. Okay. We can go down a little bit further. We've then got dehumidifiers. We've got dust sheets available as well. Okay, now dust sheet's going to be more wear and tear than rental cost. Okay, so we just want to make sure that over the course of your job, these things are going to be looked at, because especially if you're going to be going through shovels, dust sheets, somebody might leave them out in the rain. We want to make sure that these are costs that are in the back of your mind. Okay, and the software is picking up on them. Now, a dust sheet, it's not really extravagant. Don't get me wrong. You wouldn't be too upset about that, but you've then got your drills, your plate compactors. If somebody goes into the back of your van and steals that, you'll want to know the software's not charging for a rainy day, but it is covering you for it as well. All right. And then a little bit further down, we've got our wheelbarrow. Terribly sorry. We've got your zip door. Okay. Your trench props, trench sheets, and so on. So, and then we've got, again, site cabin, steel containers, and you can choose how your waste is going to be removed from site. Okay, so that's going to be roll on, roll off skips, grab lorries, or your smaller skips as well. Okay. From here, we can then have a look at our material. So in our material, okay, we've got 3,000 to 4,000 materials from the very beginning. Okay, now you can go in and you can change this up. You can tweak these prices to suit your business. Okay, but if you're working with the likes of Travis, TradePoint, Keyline, okay, we can work with those merchants as well. Get their account numbers, feed that into the software, and your pre-agreed discounts will then start appearing in the package as well. Okay, I do have a question. Bear with me a second. How often do HPXL update their material costs? Now, we track our pricing and we update it weekly. Now, as you can see here, I've not updated my software and my prices since the 26th of the 11th, 2020. So I've not done it for about 4 or 5 weeks, okay? And that was because essentially I was leading up to Christmas, okay? And then I've recently just come back to work. So that's me. If you do want to download your prices or recently update your prices, all you have to do is click download prices in the top left-hand corner. And depending, it does do it quite quick because at the end of the day, 4,000 material prices aren't going to change altogether, okay? But what will happen is there will be a variation in the price going into the new year, especially in the likes of timber, insulation as well. You'll be able to see that difference, okay? And once it's done that, it will timestamp it for me, okay? Once we're happy with this as well, so now it's timestamped, brilliant. We can start looking in the search bar for timber. And if I typed in timber, essentially everything to do with timber is going to come up. So it's not a very good search at the end of the day. However, if I wanted to look at for, say, C16 joists, I click enter, it's going to be more accurate to what I want to search for. Okay. This now leads me on to your favorite merchants. Now, favorite merchants are what we're going to be able to do and work with you, especially with your local merchants as well. Because essentially what we want to do at the end of the day, we want to make sure that your prices are correct and to what your guys are using. So working with you and your merchant, okay, if you can get an Excel spreadsheet of their materials, we can help you feed that information into the software. So that way then, if you're not going to Travis for your bricks, if you're not going to Juicens for your bricks or anyone like that, if you're going for, say, Chard's local builders, you'll be able to come down here and say, okay, Chard's are going to be my supplier of bricks, my timber is going to be Ted's Timber, my doors are going to be Derek's Doors. I can see we're all full of alliteration at the moment, but you catch my drift. And what will happen is when the software then starts giving you a price for the job, you'll say that, okay, then I'm using a £1.30 facing brick. The software is going to go to Chard's for that £1.30 brick. It's not going to worry about taking it from the random HPXL price that we've got in there that we're tracking to your regions. Okay, it's going to be to your agreed discount because you might be going, I'm getting a £1.30 brick. Software uses the £1.30 brick, but you might be getting a 10% discount on that. So it's then coming in at £1.17 next to your purchase price. Okay, so then you'll be able to see this difference. Lastly, I want to show you the specifications. Specifications are how your software works at the end of the day. Okay, essentially, we've got the software booked up for you to be essentially best case scenario. So we're looking at 2 bricklayers and a mate, 2 plasterers and a mate as well. Likelihood is you might not be working with those size teams. It might just be 1 bricklayer on his own, 1 bricklayer and a mate. Okay, so if that is the case, just come in here, just select the specification that you want to work on. So whether it's extension, new build, or whatnot. And then you can start changing. So as I can see, I can just scroll down here and I've got 2 bricklayers to make straight away for laying trench blocks, inner bricks, and so on. If I wanted to change that, I could just highlight, change resource. So I can choose bricklayer and a mate instead. Or what might be the case, and with a lot of builders as well, they might want to only calculate for the material and none of the labor and add that in as a subcontract cost at the end as well. And you can do that also by just highlighting all the brick and blocks and just selecting not required. And that way then you'll be able to go through any walling detail. It will calculate all the material, but it won't worry about calculating for the labor. Okay, so you can set that as a default as well. Okay. And that is your library. Does anybody have any questions about how the software kind of works in the background? Okay, before we actually start going into a job itself. So, we've just had a question come through. Do you have an Apple Mac version? Unfortunately not, no. So essentially what happens with our software, and you'll find this across the board with a lot of businesses as well, it's a lot cheaper for companies to be able to run and create software in Windows format because of the licensing that Apple and Mac like to charge us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not searching for a viable method of cloud for you to be able to run our software through Apple. Okay, but at the moment we haven't found one that's actually financially sustainable. They're just asking us to pay through the roof, and we don't want to put that on our clients either at the end of the day. Okay, so what we would suggest is that if you're going to be running the software, running it on a Mac, you need to purchase Parallels and then Windows, and then you'll be able to run the software in the background, essentially, and be able to run this software as well. And most business software packages as well. Unlike AutoCAD, as it were, okay, seems they're such a global market company, they can afford these things. Whereas if you're looking at local accounting softwares and things like that, okay, something that's going to be unique to you and your business, the likelihood is it's going to be running on Windows. Okay, and I don't think there are very many, if any, estimating software packages that run directly on Mac, unfortunately. Okay. I've had another one. Can you create your own calculators within the software? Absolutely. So essentially what would happen here on the left-hand side in the library, we have estimating calculators and groups of estimating calculators. What will happen here is that if you look at view my estimating calculators, you're going to find every estimating calculator that's in the software. Okay, and as you can see, there's quite a few. But what might happen is you might see ours and go, you know what, that's a pretty decent calculator. However, I do it just a little bit differently. Okay, so what will happen is if you can look at our block paving one, and you can just copy it, call it whatever you want, and then you can tweak how you price up that particular job. Okay, that way then when you're going into the software, you can go, right, okay, then I'm happy with everything that they've done. However, what I like to also calculate for is, I don't know what could be additional to block paving, really. It might be a particular type of bedding that you use that you're not happy with ours. Okay, and you can just create that as well. It might be something unique to your local area. Okay, so you can do that as well. Under the groups of estimating calculators, this is where you can then start saying if you do a particular landscaping job, we do have dedicated landscaping calculators in there, but what you can do is you can combine multiple calculators into one job, and that way then you can go, well, okay, then this is going to be my decking option for my clients as well, and you select that, and it can then go through the decking, the balustrade, any additional turfing. You might be going through artificial lawns as well for your client, plant pots, scenery, electrics, and so on. And you can combine that all under one job because that might just be an aspect of your business that you might have started and offer clients as well. All right, so that is there available also. Creating a brand new job, you go up to create new job in the top left hand corner, and then you've got 4 options available. You've got the quote from the standard job template, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Quote from a custom job template, which is going to be more your customized builds. Okay, so if you're going to be looking at large structural steel builds, okay, you'll probably go down this route, and we can help train you into how to calculate those correctly. As well, not saying that you can't, but sometimes it might just be a brand new job that you're thinking, I'd like to be able to know that. Give us a call, we'll walk you through it, okay, with your plans as well. Quote from a Plans Express import. We have a second package called Plans Express. As you can see down here, you can see a few things that look a little bit different. Okay, essentially what you would do is you can upload a set of plans, and then with the software you will do a takeoff on screen. At the moment it's manual. Okay, so you just do the takeoff on screen, import that into the software, and it will give you a cost. Okay, Plans Express will become eventually something quite different within the marketplace, because at the moment there are no software packages that can read plans automatically for you and tell you, okay, is this all the work you're going to be doing? Brilliant. This is how much it's going to cost. The software, Plans Express, our next update is that when you upload the plans, the software is going to read them for you and just confirm whether or not you're happy with what it's done. So it's going to say, okay, then you're going to have X linear meterage of wall, okay, external wall. What would you like that wall to be? And you can go brick and block. Brilliant. You've got several windows. What do you want them to be? Aluminium, PVC, hardwood, and you'll be able to go through that list as well. Okay, and then once you're happy with that detail, pop that into the software, the Estimator Express, and that way then you go, well, I selected an aluminium, but now it's going to be my supplier of aluminium instead of just a generic aluminium price. Okay, so that's what's going to be coming in next. And then finally, quote using estimating calculators. We've combined calculators together, and you're going to see this in a moment. So with a brick and block cavity wall, we've combined your foundations, your footings, the actual wall itself, okay, plastering, decorating, skirting. So we've put in 7-8 things together because we're presuming that you're going to be doing it all together. Okay. However, you might just want to calculate for one single outdoor tap for a little old lady. Okay, and if that is the case, you can create that little calculator down here. If you wanted to do it in the software anyway, you could probably do it in about 5 minutes in your head. But if you wanted to do it with the software, you can. Okay, so you can break it down individual jobs. If you just wanted to estimate for plastering on its own, you can do that here. Okay, it's entirely up to you. So quote from a custom job standard job template. I select that there, and depending on the version of the software that you're running, will depend on the templates that you'll be able to see from the very beginning. So your core version is going to give you everything up to the N-shaped double-story flat roof extension, and then from your garages as well. Your plus is going to give you all of these, plus your conservatories, and we are just finalizing some loft conversion templates as well for different shaped lofts. And then your premium is going to do all of that, plus these houses, bungalows, flats, and such as well. Okay, so as I've not done an Apex single story extension, in a while, I'm just going to select one of those and we can just hit the ground running. Okay, so once it's all loaded up, you're going to be able to see an image of the building itself and some dimensions. Okay, so a brief description of what's going on at the very beginning. We're saying that we're going to be building a single story Apex roof extension. Up at the top, we've got assumptions and omissions, so you can type these in here and they're going to be populated on the quote at the very end. Okay. Provisional sums, as you would, a long description to appear in the quote, a short description to appear in your reports, a potential build phase if you want to select a build phase. You can even give it a location and you can drop in a cost as well. Okay. Client contact details at the very top. And then you've got cost breakdown. So as you can see at the moment, the software is telling me that the construction cost of this at the moment is £15,951.50. The profit and overhead is £4,148. And the sales price at the moment is £20,051.97. That is excluding VAT at the moment. So you're looking at roughly about 25 grand at this moment in time. Okay. What I'm going to be able to see here is this is 3.9 by 4.2. If I wanted to change this to 4.4 by 6, I could just type it in there, and these prices go up. Now, changing it by 100 mil going into the house is not going to be anything real, but if I go 6, this 16,000 is going to pop up to 21,000. Brilliant. So we've got a nice round, square number there. Okay. What we're going to indicate the house as well is this white line. Now, if I click cost breakdown, what we're going to see is this 4x6 is currently calculating brick and block cavity wall, screeding to the extension floor, the slab itself, the apex roof, and the connecting wall plastering. Okay. However, we've not gone into the details about these walls yet. So what we can see here is down, terribly sorry, I've got a horrible cold. And we can see here that what we're actually breaking down as well, rainwater goods are £27 at the moment. Okay. To go into a little bit more detail, we can then start looking at the plastering and the decorating. So we have a couple of yes/no questions at the moment. So are we going to allow for the plastering? Yes. Are we going to allow for the decoration? Depending on the client. Okay. Are we going to allow for the internal finishing to the external walls? So what we're saying here is that back wall, we are going to plaster, we are going to decorate. Now this, it's a standard dot and dab, okay, but you can choose battens, you can choose whatever you need, okay. However, some clients might want that to be a nice feature brick wall, so it might not be a necessary job, okay. So it's entirely up to you. Are we going to decorate the fascias and soffits? Absolutely not. We're using UPVC, okay. But if you're using softwood, that might be a yes. Cavity wall foundation depth below site strip 900 mil, so we're happy with that, and unless we're hitting bedrock, okay. Ceiling height downstairs, 2.4 meters if we're going for a flat ceiling. I'm going to change it to a vaulted ceiling so we don't have to worry about that too much. And then we've also got roof pitch downstairs, 45 degrees. That really depends on the pitch of the roof at the end of the day. Okay. Once you're happy with this, we can go into the resource specification. Okay, and what we're doing here, this is called a mini spec. Okay, so we can tell the job straight away. We're going to be using a £1.30 brick. The roof tiling is going to be a slate. Roof guttering, it defaults to plastic, but you could choose steel, zinc, cast iron, aluminium, depending on what you want to use. Okay. If we were going to go with a flat roof, it would default to fiberglass, but we do have EPDM, basic felt, premium felt, single ply, depending on what you want to use. Fascia barge boards and soffits defaulted to UPVC. Okay. Floorboards, if we're going to be doing and dropping down any T&G options for our client, we've got whitewood, chipboard, plywood, redwood. Decoration, we're going to leave that the same as what we've said. And then we've got plant and labor for the excavation. Don't get me wrong, best case scenario, we've got a mini digger and a driver. Okay, however, you might be working in a terrace house. They want a nice wraparound or a little extension being put in there. And the likelihood is you're not going to get a mini digger in there, especially if you've got no rear access. So it will be a manual dig. But we do have a JCB as well if you're working in an open site, maybe for a development plot. Okay. Once you're happy with that, you can click OK. It will jiggery pokery the price, telling me it's going to go up. Brilliant. I've chosen a more expensive brick. I was expecting that. I can click completed, and that's my spec. Done. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. Clicking this completed option on the right-hand side here has no bearing on the price of the job. Okay. It's purely for your benefit, just to say, I'm happy, I'm done with that. I don't need to look at it anymore. Okay. Now, from there, we then have the external walls. So we can clearly see that this is a brick wall, but it's chosen brick and block. Okay. If I hit that drop-down box, what we can now see are brick and ICF, so inch-related concrete forming, brick and SIPs. I know it's inch-related panels. I can't remember what the S stands for. I'm terribly sorry. Double leaf bricks. Okay, double leaf cavity brick wall, external cavity block wall, so a block and block with render. Then we've got rendered ICF, rendered SIPs, single leaf, stone face as well. I think it's structural inch-related panels, something like that. Now, if I were to change to the external cavity block wall, as a kind of reference, we've changed the image for you as well, just so you're aware. Okay. What you can also see as well, the price of the job has actually gone down because it's block and block at the end of the day. If I go to brick and block, hops back up again. All right. Next to that, we've then got the dimensions, the resources, and the estimating calculator. Now, as you can see, we've got the same on the floors, the roof, the plastering. It's across the board, because what you're going to do now is that if I go into the DIMS, which we call dimensions, we can see that we've got 2.4 from the top of DPC to the ceiling height, and an overall 14 meters of wall. Okay, and it's pulled that in from the dimensions that we've stuck in there. If you can see them in green boxes, that means they've been calculated automatically for you. Okay, and you can see that there's a 0 in there for the openings to the main wall, because when you start dropping in doors and windows, I'm going to pop in a bifold. Okay, that calculates the square meterage of brickwork that's going to be coming out of that wall. Okay. Foundation details, 900 deep, like we've stated up here. 600 wide. Now that's not in green because that could change, varied on the job. And then we've got 500 mil worth of structural concrete and nothing for mass concrete. Now this really depends on how you're going to be building the job. And the reason I know the difference is because, well, I've used the software for close to 10 years now, but I can tick these two boxes and we've got structural concrete labeled and mass concrete labeled. Now we're not teaching you how to suck eggs. You know the building game inside and out. Okay, however, with our software, there are going to be some dimensions that you're going to be looking at going, Christ, why is that number there? What do they mean? What are they talking about? So if I just click a box in the top right-hand corner, it's going to describe to you exactly what's happening with this particular job. Okay, and it's labeled for you as well. Do you want to plank and strut this excavation? No, you don't have to. At 900 mil deep, there's no legal obligation for you to have to support this foundation depth. But if you're going to be doing some strutting, okay, next to a build over, you could just change that to yes, and it'll just calculate for the extra timber that you're going to need and the extra labor costs that you're going to need. Okay. Bulking of the excavator material, we're calculating that as 1.5. So the soil or the clay coming out of the ground, we're saying is going to expand by at least half. So for every cubic meter, we're going to charge for wastage of 1.5 cubic meters. Okay. We've then got your footing details. So we've got cavity width, overall width, splash course depth, brickwork depth below splash course. If I turn these off, looks something like that. Don't get me wrong, to the untrained eye, that probably looks quite daunting, but to yourselves, you probably know exactly what you're looking at. Okay. Is the main wall to be insulated? Yes or no? Is there a separate DPC? Yes or no? And then finally, are we plastering? Yes, we are. Are we decorating? Yes, we are. Are we going to be putting skirting board in? Yes, we are. Okay, so you can see that's all yes. If I were to make any adjustments, so if I turn off the decoration and I change that to 1.2 meters, so our foundation depth is going to go a little bit deeper, and I go back into that dimension, you're going to see that our foundation depth is now 1.2 meters. Concrete's now gone up because we need to use more, and we are now being told that we have to support this foundation depth because this is legally needed now. Okay. Not only that, I can go back in here and decoration has now been said to no. So we're not doing any decoration. Your client can do it all themselves. Okay. I'm just going to change that back to 0.9. Once you're happy with the dimensions, you've then got the resources and the estimating calculator. Now, these two bits of information are the exact same. They're just given to you in two different ways based on how you might retain information or how you want to look at some information as well. Okay, so firstly, resources. We're going to give you images and we're going to highlight them for you. Okay, so essentially you can see here that we have selected structural concrete. Okay, and that's what we put in there at 500 mil. We can see that we're using 115 pound per cubic meter. Okay, now you might be paying a little bit less, a little bit more. So you can hit the drop down box and it tells you about all the different options that could take its place. So we're not inundating you with 3,000 materials at this point. Okay, we're saying to you, right, okay, then you're going to be using, swapping out concrete for concrete. What do you want to use? I've got £100 there. Brilliant. I'm happy with that. I can click OK. We've got our cost in there. Okay, £100 per cubic meter. If they didn't have your price and you want to create a new one, just click New Resource. It copies all the relevant information about the concrete Gen 1 50 to 70 millimeter slump. And then what we can do is we can change the price to £150 per cubic meter. We can even create our own merchants. Okay, so I'm just going to go Google for the time being. Sod it. Okay, we've got a 20% VAT rate, but then we've got 7.5% wastage on this as well. We click OK. It does all that for you, and that £451 is going to go up to £677.25. So any variation that you make, the software is going to be creating that for you as well. Okay. If you wanted to have a look at the footing details, the wall details, so bricks above DPC, we can see £1.30 a brick. I can swap that out for any other brick as well. Material can just enter labour on the plant, can be swapped down here. So you select that, keeps the same image, but now it's telling you who's doing the job and how much it's going to cost you. Okay, if you hover that mouse, but you can swap that out as well if need be. Okay. And that's one way of looking at that particular calculator. The other way is more of an Excel spreadsheet type format. Okay, so you're taken to this page here. You can click Calculated Resources, and you can see that it's more like the specification that you saw at the very beginning. Okay, so I can start seeing that I've got my gloss brilliant white 5 litre here. Are we going to be using that? No, we aren't. We're not going to be using it because we're not decorating. Okay, but I can then go up to say the insulation blocks and how much we're paying and how much we need. Okay, so you've got that as well. And if you wanted to change, just go right click, change the resource. And then you can start looking at the insulation blocks. And that is how you would change the dimensions of the walls, how you would change the material, how you would change the labor, how you would set up a particular job from the very beginning. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Because what we've now done is essentially we've gone through the most intense part of this job, which is your specifications, your libraries, how you're getting your pricing into the software, how you would change materials, how you would start going about the dimensions as well. Okay. Everything from here on is just going to be, here's the floors, here's what you can change it to, here's what the prices look like. Okay, so it's nice and straightforward. If anybody has any questions, fire them out to me. I'm just going to go through this job step by step. Right, no questions. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're going to just run through the rest of the software and see how it looks. Okay, so as I said, once you're happy, you can just click this completed and that's you done. All right. One final thing to say as well is if you just wanted to go from top to bottom with this job and not worry about any of the materials yet, okay, what you can do is you can just go from top to bottom, fill in all the relevant details, then click main estimate on the left hand side. Okay, what that's going to do is that's going to round up your entire job, put it on a different page, okay, and that way then you could just jump into each individual build phase and start going through that methodology. Okay, you can change all the materials on that as well there if you wanted to. So I've just had a question as to, I'd be interested in how the cost would change if using ICF walls. So what would happen here is if I selected brick and ICF, okay, the price has gone up by a further £4,000. Okay, at this moment in time, with how we've calculated it and the materials that we're using. With ICF walls, they're usually dealt with by a particular supplier and a particular build process as well. So you're going to be using different costs. Okay, so you can do that as well. I'm just going to hop back to brick and block. I'm terribly sorry. From here, we can then have a look at the floor. So as you can see, with the way that the software works, it is all drop-down functionality. Okay, so you can go through quite a big job in a matter of moments, really. I mean, because don't get me wrong, I know this is showing you an apex extension you can see with the bifold doors. However, that could be the exact shape of somebody's porch. All you've got to do is just stick in the dimensions, and the software's going to do the rest for you. You can stick on a front door, stick on a little concrete slab as well, and you're well on your way. Okay, so you do have that option available also. But then we can have a look at the flooring. We've got an extension slab. It's ground bearing at the moment. But I can drop this box down. I'm just going to click away, do that again. But we can see it's going to be ground bearing and inch related, reinforced, inch related and reinforced. We've then got suspended, if that was going to be happening, beam and block flooring, inch related timber floor as well. And if I went for ground bearing, inch related and reinforced, I can then start choosing my screed options available to me as well. So screed with extensions with mesh and insulation. Okay, with mesh, no insulation, so on and so forth. You might not reinforce the concrete slab twice. Okay, it's entirely up to you. Okay, but then what we can do is on the slab itself, we can go to the dimensions. It's not worried about width or length. It's just calculated the square meterage for you. And then it's saying, okay, then the sand blinding is going to be 1 inch. The concrete, the sub base is going to be 6 inches as well. Building reg standard at the end of the day. But if you're digging into concrete and a lot of brick and block going in there anyway, you might not be going that deep. Okay, so just keep an eye on that. Slab details, 100 mil deep. Is there insulation to the underside of the slab? Yes, there will be. The perimeter of the insulation, calculated that for you. Is there a DPM? Yes, there is. Reinforcement to the bottom and the top of the slab? Yes, there are. And if I could tick these and label these, just seeing by these little dots here, that's our meshing. Great. Okay. Is it power float finished? Yes or no. With the screed, dimensions, we've got the depth, width of the floor, and then it just calculates the square meterage for us again. Enter the length of vertical insulation if required. Is the floor to be insulated? Yes, it is. Is screed supplied as a ready-mix screed? Yes or no. Is a screed reinforced with mesh? Yes or no. And then how long are we going to need a screed pump, screed mixer, or so on? Okay. And then we can go with that. This extension template is a very simple example for us to see how the software works. Absolutely, that's what we want to do. Okay. I didn't want to go into the intricacies of, say, a full steel extension or something like that with maybe a lot of glass paneling, where you'd be going to different suppliers, different provisional sums, having your client provide certain doors and windows for you as well, if that's something that you're going to be ordering. Okay, because essentially what we want to do is we just want to make sure that essentially straightforward and out of the box, you know what it can do. So if the job was going to be a large house with major internal changes, what you would do is you wouldn't select a template, because we don't have a template for a large house with internal changes. What we do have, however, is a renovation template, which will allow you to create multiple rooms within a house with their dimensions, and you'll be able to select room by room what work is going to be done, whether you're going to be hacking all the walls, knocking through walls, plastering, decorating, and so on. Okay, you've then got commercial carpeting, fitting out, so then this could be anything from laminate flooring, okay, bricking up fireplaces. These are all part and parcel of a renovation template and parts of this as well. And I can show you some aspects of how that would actually look when we go further down this job, because this could be a knock through as well, and you could be renovating the kitchen. Okay, so these are going to be needing some of those same calculators rolling through as well. All right, not a problem at all. So from here, we've then got the roof. As I said earlier on, I'm going to be going for a vaulted ceiling. Okay, so we've got plaster and insulate to a flat ceiling. Our vaulted ceiling detail is going to be plaster and insulate to the rafters. Speaking to a lot of builders at the moment, they usually say it's going to be a vaulted ceiling nowadays because a lot of clients want to have a lot more light so they can drop in some velluxes. Okay, so we've got that available for us as well. And if I went into the dimensions here, we've got the clear span of the joist. It's doing all the calculations for us. Okay, we have a cut list that's going to be coming back into the software as well, something that was in the original, but we took it out just to calculate it and make sure that it's okay. So we'll get a cut list for you as well. All right, but then you can go into the dimensions of the joist centers, rafter centers, gable abutment, and so on. Okay, there is, and you will have access to, a solar panel calculator within this package. Whether or not you want to use it, it's entirely up to you. There might be a feature that you want to offer a client. Okay, but I'm not going to go into this demonstration anyway. Structural openings. This is a two-step process. First process, you're going to want to do the knock through and how big do you want that opening to be. So I can just go down here. We've got some generic sizes in there for you. So if I go to an existing wall, you can see that we have some in here for you. Okay, I'm just going to select a medium opening. And it's pulled in 3 meters by 2.1 to the bottom of the steel, 150mm end bearing. Whether or not I'm going to be using pad stones, and if I'm not using pad stones, how many bricks? Okay, bulking factor this time is going to be a bulking factor of 2 instead of 1.5 because of the air pockets it's going to be leaving in your skips. Okay, and then we've got our plastering and decorating options as well. So that's step 1. Step 2 requires you to scroll down a little bit and just go to the structural beams and posts. As long as you have access to the structural engineer's details, okay, and their notes, you'll be able to find their steelwork in our software. Okay, so as long as you've got the height, so if I want to go for a 254 by 102, we've then got some different weight variances that they can take on, 22, 25, 28 kilo. If I went for the 28 kilo, it's £56 per meter. We can see that's pulled in my dimensions for me as well. Is there going to be any allowance for fabrication and connections? If we're going to be doing goalpost stills, the likelihood is yes. Okay. And then we've also got plastering into steelwork, labor and plant requirements. Are we going to be using craftsmen, laborers? Are we going to be needing any additional plant? Okay, because the software is already calculating acros and strong boys. Okay, but you might need to rent this that piece of plant as well. Okay, then lastly, you've then got number of days for the crane to fit the steel if you need a crane. Okay, and you can click finish. We are working on a needling calculator as well at the moment. We're just making sure that the building regulation can pass it first before we start giving it to you. Okay, just so you're aware. Back up to the top, we've then got the plastering to the existing connecting wall. So that back wall, that was the back of the house. Are we going to plaster and decorate it? Yes, we are. Okay, so we've got the external side and the internal side. So the external side, we're saying that what was the outside of the house is now going to be plastered and decorated. The internal side, we've done a knock through. The likelihood is we've busted out that wall pretty bad. Okay, we want to touch that up. Okay, so we are going to replace the skirtings, but we're just going to do a plaster and skim. Okay, and then we've got the external side. I'm going to do that on battens with insulation. Okay, so I can select that as well, and I can go into those dimensions in a little bit more detail as to what we're going to be doing. We've got the dimensions of that wall, plastering details as well. Okay, we can start selecting external doors. So we've got aluminium, composite, PVC-UM, bifold, French, garage, patio, pedestrian, depending on what you're going to be working with. Okay, so if I go for a aluminium bifold door, I can start selecting the width, the U value, the color, the hinge side as well. If I were to go gray, I'm happy with that. We can then go U value. I want it to be 1. The width, I can just say just 3.2 meters. So I've got a 4-door bifold door here. Now I forgot the word bifold then. Terribly sorry. But then what we can see here is we've got the different opening options. So we've got right front opening, 1 left, 3 right, 2 and 2, 3 left, 1 right, and opening from the left. Likelihood is they're probably going to go for a 2 and 2 because everybody wants it to just open out and have that walk through moment. Okay, so you've got that available. It's going to calculate the lintel whether it's going to be a steel lintel or a catnic lintel. Just ignore the image, okay? It will tell you which one you're going to need. And then your cavity closers, okay? And how many of these do you want? Once you've done that, you've then got the option to add a top treatment. This isn't you painting the aluminium or the PVC door or window. This is you adding on an architectural stone coin. So if you've got a nice brick and block with that sandstone finish, that might be something that you're offering your client. So you've got that option available as well, okay? However, we've got this description there: aluminium, bifold door, 2 left, 2 right, opening out. These are the dimensions, and it's in grey. That description might be damn near correct. However, the price that we've charged your client for might be completely wrong because you're going to your own supplier for this. If that is the case, just go to where it says resources, click that button there, select where it says door. You can see that we're charging your client £3,340. And if you wanted to go just new resource, you've got the entire description there for you to use, and then you can charge whatever you like. So I'm just going to go 3,000. My merchant's going to be, see if I've got a door win in there automatically for us. Door supplier. Sorry, I was really creative that day. Okay, we've even got a product code as well. DR1234. Click OK. And as you can see, we've now got our item cost in there. What you are seeing here as well is we've got your markup at £75. So you're going to be making £75 from the store. And then you can click next and go through whatever else you're happy with. Okay. If I were to hop back to that external wall now and go into that calculator, the dimension, we can see that we've got 6.93 in there. Okay, so it's calculated that opening for us also. Windows, this type of extension probably wouldn't have a window, but you can go through the exact same process. Okay. Roof windows, however, your Velexes, probably a yes. So we've then got opening type, so whether it's going to be center pivot, electric, you've then got some widths and heights, color, glazing type, and that's going to be your window right there. We're taking these prices directly from the Velux website. Okay, so you might be getting a supplier in there a lot differently, a lot cheaper. Ours are coming in at £677. Okay, we can then start adding on the underfelt collar and such, which is going to add to the cost. Add in the blind if we want to as well. How many of these do we want? We want 2 of these. But then again, we can just come in here, select the window, and we can change these as well if we want to. Okay, it's entirely up to you what you want to do with this particular cost. If you had an internal cavity walls, you can add those in there in linear meterage. Single skin solid walls, you might be doing an extension with a partition wall in there. Okay, you've then got wooden stud and metal stud partition. I can click the dimensions. We've got the height. You can go into the dimensions of the studding centers. How many screws you want per square meter, or how much money you want to spend on screws per square meter. Anyway, and then you've also got your stud wall plastering and decorating options. How many layers of plasterboard do you want either side? Because essentially you might be doing multiple layers of plasterboard due to soundproofing. Okay, it's entirely up to you again. But you can just tick these off. Sleeper walls, tick that off. Internal doors, you can add in fire doors or typical panel doors. Your fire doors are defaulted to 1 hour long doors. These are going to be going into the frames as well. Okay, and your threshold strips. All right, so it's going to go into all that. But then you've also got whether it's going to go into a blockwork or into studding. Difference between the two is that blockwork's going to calculate for concrete lintel, where studding's not going to worry about that. Okay. Going back to the previous option about how would you make alterations of an internal of a house, really. Okay, so other than the renovation options available to you, so if I scroll down a little bit further, we've got demolition of walls, external renovation, floorboard lifting, gutter and fascia renovations, internal renovations, internal stripping outs. We can do this by bulk. Okay, go down a little bit further. Temporary house and drive protection. So if that was something that you wanted to offer, you've then got carpet protection if that's something you're going to be doing. Corner protectors, self-adhesive bubble wraps, polythene partition for temporary protection, sink protectors, gown protection, grass protection as well. OSB boards, might just need 3 of those just to make sure that we're not cocking up the person's driveway. Okay, number of tarpaulins, just the 1 as well. And we're going to say it's going to take them 4 hours to do that, half a day. It shouldn't take too long. All right, we've got that one in there, so we can do that. Going back to the room option, what we can then do is start adding in a particular room. Now you can add in kitchens, bathrooms, master bedrooms. It's entirely up to you really, depending on what you're going to be doing with this particular job. So if I go for a flat ceiling, I can start typing in kitchen, and that's going to be pre-populated there. We've then got the length of the room, which is going to be 5 meters, and the width of the room, which is going to be 3.85. I'm just going to go 5 by 5. I know we've called it a rectangular room, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm happy with a 5 by 5. I can then link an estimated opening. Now, why I'm going to be doing this is because essentially I'm just going to tell the software that, okay, then I have already done a knock through, so we don't have to worry about step 1. We've then got add existing openings. So if you were creating, say, a kitchen, a child's bedroom, anything like this here, you'd add in certain things. So I'm just going to go 2.1 in height, 0.9 in width. I'm just going to go 0.05 for the reveal depth, and I'm going to select that as an internal door. I'm going to be creating another one, so I'm just going to go 1.2 high, 1.8 wide, just leave it as 0.05 again, but I'm going to call this a window. Now the reason I've done this is because when I go down to the room estimated items and I go to renovation, I can select chasing walls, floorboard lifting, internal renovation, internal stripping out, removal of floorboards, depending on what I'm going to be doing. And you don't have to do this in the chronological order of how you're going to be doing the build, okay? I like going into internal renovation first because I can then start selecting hackle, walls, replaster, skirt, and decorate through to just a reskim, skirt, cornice, picture rail, data rail, and decorate as well, okay? And this is going to be removal and refit. But if I go hackle, walls, replaster, skirt, and decorate, say, we've got the height and the overall length of walls. Decoration options, we said no to decoration at the very beginning, so that's why you're seeing no to everything. Okay. Are we going to be stripping wallpaper from walls? No, we're not. Hacking plaster from the walls? Yes, we are. Number of corners requiring angle bead? Really depends on the build. Okay. Sill walls prior to the plastering? Yes, we are. Internal door details. So we've then got that height and that width. How many doors have we got? We've just got the one. Remove architrave of internal doors? Yes, we are. Replace the architraves of internal doors with new architraves? Yes. Or refit existing? No. Okay. But that really depends on the aesthetic. You might be working to a certain building specification where you have to refit the skirting board due to rules and regulations, really, maybe. Remove threshold strip from the internal doors? Yes, we are. Replace it with a new one? Yes. Remove all skirting? Yes. Replace with new skirting? Yes. Or refit old. We've then got the details about our wall, our windows. Removing the window board? Yes. Or replacing with a new one? Yes, we are. Because they might be going from timber to PVCU. We've then got cornices, picture rails, and dados. All the details about those. External doors and structural opening details. So we've got our structural opening in there. We don't have to worry about the door too much because this knock through has probably knocked out that door. And then we've got the ceiling. Are you going to be ripping down the ceiling? Are you going to be replacing the ceiling? Are you going to be insulating that ceiling as well? Are you going to be papering it for some obscure reason again? Okay, so you've got that option available. Once you've done that, you can then start calculating the channels to be cut. Because essentially, you might just think of this as part and parcel of the day and what they're going to be doing if they're going to be adding in additional electrics. However, what the software wants you to do is allocate time as well. So it just gives you that leeway, and it will charge it for you as well, charge your client for it as an additional job to be done. Okay, so you've got vertical length of channeling, horizontal length of channeling, how wide you want it to be, and then how many sockets you want to be recessed as well. So you've got that option available. Finally, you've got the internal stripping out. So number of internal doors to remove if we're removing any, number of external doors if we're removing any, number of windows if we're removing any. Now that knock through, I'm going to say we are going to be getting rid of at least one door. Okay, total length of skirting and wall moldings to remove. We've already done that in the internal renovation, so we don't have to worry about that too much. But if we weren't using this room calculator and we were doing it all by ourselves, you'd be filling this out bit by bit. Area of wood flooring coverings to remove, none. We could do that under the renovation if we wanted to. Number of fireplaces to remove, fireplaces to block up. And then this one at the very bottom, number of chimney breasts, non-structural to remove. The reason why we've got non-structural in there is because we have a calculator dealing with the house integrity as well. Okay, so we want to make sure that you know that this is purely just going to be a knockout, block up. Okay. Disconnect the mains, waters, gas, and house electric supply. This could be a full Large renovation where these things have to be turned off for a while. So you've got that there. And then you've got your household strip out. So rads to remove, disposal of the rads, bathroom suites, kitchen units to be stripped out. And I could say, okay, then we're going to have 11 units to remove, 3 appliances, allowance for the cost of disposal of appliances as well, 100 quid by the council, but let's hope the scrap guys pick them up. Okay, number of hours for removal of household contents. We're just going to have 1 guy doing it in a day or 3 guys 1 day. So I'm just going to say 24 hours just to remove it all. Okay, so you can do that. And we've got a new plastered shell here. What we can do is we can start looking at the electrical items and the plumbing items. So what the software is going to do is under the plumbing items, it's going to pull in the dimensions that you're working with. I'm going to choose kitchen. You've got the square meterage there, and it's going to populate you with the relevant size rad that you're going to need. Okay, so I need a K2 400 by 1600 rad. Okay, for me to pass regulations. You've then got copper pipe, enter a timber floor. You might not be doing a timber floor, so you can just swap that out, and then you can choose what you're going to be doing with it, whether it's going to go into concrete, surface mounted and painted, and so on. Okay, so you've got these options available. You can do the exact same with the electrics as well. It's going to default what's needed for a room, and then you can build upon it as well, whether you're going to be needing spares, an entire electrical fit out as well. It's entirely up to you. General electrical installation, we can then start going for earth and cross bonding, smoke alarms, unscripted spares, immersion wiring, consumer units as well. Okay, so you've got those options available for yourself. If you didn't like that, if you were just going to be doing it room by room by yourself or just plastering it individually, you can then go to the basic plaster patching, basic plastering to walls. You can create an entire room and just do the plastering for that one room as well if you're just doing plastering jobs. If you did a block and block with render extension, you might be rendering the rest of the house, so you can go basic rendering to walls as well. Additional with decoration, you've got door stripping, roof decoration, staircase decoration as well, depending on what you're offering your client. Walling sundries, we're just going to be making this extension a little bit more different now. So we've got architectural stone coins, chimneys, cladding, parapet walls, feature brickworks, tile cladding, and so on. Renovation and demolition, we've already added the temporary house and drive protection, but we could be adding in demolition of walls. We could be knocking out a conservatory to put up this extension. That could be one part of the job. Okay. Plumbing, we can start adding in individual items, fitting out underfloor heating systems, additional electrics as well. Fitting out, we're now looking at engineered wood flooring, natural stone floor tiling, wood laminate flooring as well. This is what's going to be going into the extension. Drainage and services, you can do this all individually, or what we've done is we've given you a group of items to work with as well. Okay, so under the group of items, just read through what we've said and see whether you like it or not and build on it. So we've got drainage for plant using a mini digger. I'm happy with that. And then we've got surface drainage extension with 2 rainwater connections to an existing surface water system. Now that might be damn near close to what you're doing, so select that. It's going to populate that for you, and then you can go, okay, then I'm going to need 3 87.5 bends, say. Okay, you can do that, and then at the very end you can go, and I need my wave-in Aquacell modular soakaway to pop in at the end of the garden. Okay, so that could be a part of it as well. From their external works, we can start adding in block paving, concrete drives, tarmac drives, landscaping options, so decking, panel fencing, turfing, prelims and sundries. We've got COVID control costs, cleaning costs. You can calculate scaffolding here by yourself if you want to, or you can just put it in as a lump sum cost. More often than not, people put it in as a lump sum. Okay, site establishment. And under the cleaning costs, we can call this a small extension. I can go small extension cleaning costs. We're going to send somebody in for 150 quid. Okay. Site establishment, we're going to be doing a small extension, but we're not going to be using the customer toilet. So it's then going to start pulling in site toilet. How many weeks do we want that? 12 weeks. Do we need a site cabin? No, we don't. Okay. Security fencing, is that necessary? JCB to clear the site. We've already said we're going to be using a mini digger, so that's already zeroed out. Skip for the site clearance, just the one skip. Site compound base if you have to knock anything out. sundry project costs, so skip permit if you can't get that skip on site, insurance costs, site security costs, health and safety costs, and if you have to shut off any roads, any traffic regulation costs as well. Okay. And then finally, you've got your COVID control costs as well. I can call this a small extension. But what we're going to be looking at here is social distancing vests, disposable face masks, glove packs, face visors required, hand sanitizer stations, allowance for signage, postage, additional site setup labour time as well, depending on what you're going to be doing. Before we finish off with this as well, this template, we've got subcontract quotations, and what I can do is I can go kitchen fitting contractor, I can go fit kitchen, cost allowance, £3,000, build phase, internal fitting out. And then I can also add in scaffolding contractor, erect scaffold, cost allowance, £1,000, build phase, scaffold. Okay, and we've got that as well. If this was only one aspect of the job, you might be building a single extension here, but then a garage at the bottom of the garden. Okay, what you would do is you just come down to the bottom here, click add additional template, and then you can add on anything else as well as a different part. But once you're happy with the job, you can click main estimate on the left hand side, and then it's going to go into the breakdown of your job as well. So what we can see is at the moment, our job is coming in at £57,913.95, excluding the VAT. Okay, but I've not really gone into the details and the process of what we're going to be paying our materials and our guys. A little bit more than that. Terribly sorry. If I wanted to start going through the calculators again, just click estimating calculators, and you can select the type of wall, click open, open again, and now we can start changing those materials again, and it takes you to the page like this. Okay, so you've got that option available. If you want to know from wear and tear options how much we're charging for the use of your shovel on this particular job, I'll scroll down to the bottom. We can see we've got a shovel here. Currently charging 17 pence for the use of your shovel when we're going to backfill the trench, and 50 pence for the use of your shovel when we're dealing with the concrete. Okay, so we know that 67 pence of this job is going to your shovel. So we're not forgetting the little things. Back to the main estimate. Once you're happy with the brick and block wall, you can just go finished. You can type whatever you want. You can just click this little box. If you've got multiple people using the software, what you can do is you can even leave a little note saying, please look at X, and when they turn on the software, they can see that as well. Okay. Once you're happy with all of this, however, we've then got the resource quantity rounding tool at the top of the screen. So I can click that there, and this box comes up. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the rules applied in the job. From here, you can see that we're using building sand, subbase, pea gravel, sharp sand, blue circle matchcrete original cement, building sand as well. Okay, actually, believe it or not, we're not using any of that. That's all zeroed out. So we don't need to worry about that. How much we need? So we need 3.63 bags exactly for building sand bulk bag. Okay, with the wastage that is accountable with that sand, the software is telling us that we need 4.53 bags. So it's going to round it up to 5 bags for us. Okay, and that's for our sand. Now you might be looking at that going, do you know what? I'm happy with that. Okay, that's not a problem at all. One down, we've then got subbase. The software's gone for 10.47. With wastage, has gone up to 13.09, sorry, and then we've rounded up almost an entire bag to 14 bags. So it's gone from 10.5 bags to 14 bags. Okay, that might be something you're thinking, Christ, no, that's never going to happen. I don't want to order 14 bags. What the hell am I going to do with it? So you might just go manual entry. I'm going to be happy with, say, maybe just give yourself a little bit of leeway, 12 bags at least. Okay, and it's even telling you that you've just minus a bag in a bit. Okay, and you'll just go through this list, just looking at these two columns and seeing whether or not you're happy with what's being done with the rounding. Okay. Terribly sorry. I've just had somebody tell me that their computer froze a second, so I'm just going to go rehash over this a little bit quicker again. So what's going to happen here is you're going to click the resource rounding quantity. You're going to come up to this page here. You're then going to click rules applied in job. You're going to be looking at exactly what we're going to be using material-wise, going through. And then these columns here are telling us what we need, what's going to be with wastage, and what our rounding is going to do for you. Okay, and if you look at this third column here, you can see that it's got some aggressive rounding at some points here. Okay, and we can see, okay, that is rounding up by almost a full bag here of pea gravel. So we're probably not going to need 6 bags. I could probably get away with 5 bags of pea gravel here as well. Now you might be looking at this going, God, this is going to take me forever. Believe it or not, it doesn't. Okay, it takes you about 5 minutes to go from top to bottom. Okay, it's quite quick as well, which is nice. All right, but once you're happy with all the details you've made, you'd go back to main settings and you click this little button here just to say that you are happy with what you've done. And it's now rounded everything for you. Okay, and we'll see how that rounding looks in a second. So firstly, I want to go to the build program to see how long this job is going to take. So what the software is going to ask you first is, are you happy with the gangs that you've been allocated? Okay, so we know we've gone for a brick and block, 2 bricklayers to make, and so on. But you might go, actually, you know what, that bricklayer, those foundations, I want a bricklayer and a mate doing that. It will change the price of the job, but it's also going to change the labour as well. So we're happy with that. Okay. It's also just going to give us how long we're dedicating to the commencement. We're just going to dedicate commencement to 1 day. Like setup's going to be a day. Okay. You might go, oh, you know what? I want it to be 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, depending on what it's going to be. But from the size of the job that we're dealing with and the site setup that's necessary, it's telling us that, you know, when we send that we're going to be doing drive protection and that, and it's going to take our guy 4 hours, he's being paid a day to do that. Okay, now, more often than not, he's probably going to be on site doing other things as well at the time, but it's charging a day to your client, just so you're aware. Once you're happy with that, you can click finish, and then you've got your overall job as well. Now what I can do is, if I knew this masonry shell, we were snowed off at the beginning of March for a week, I can pull that across and the job's going to cascade us all the way forward. Okay, so it's going to go along with how we're looking at it. And whilst that masonry shell is highlighted as well, what I can do is I can pull this across. I can go into the resource breakdown, and what it's going to do is going to tell me exactly what's going to need to be done, who's going to be doing it, how long it should be taking, and how long it's going to cost us. And then what materials we're going to need, how much we need, how much it's going to cost us as well. Okay, so it's going to break it all down for you as well for each individual build phase. This is something that you can print off, hand over to a client, but not client, terribly sorry, site manager. Okay, just leaving them to deal with what has to be done. All right, and then when you go to your outputs, you'll be able to see materials by type, where this rounding feature has come into a beast of its own. Okay, so what we can now see is that we've got this aggregate, Blue Circle Match Original Cement. It's costing us £3.90 a bag. We're getting it from the HBXL price tracker at the moment. However, when we link into your merchants, that'll be your price, your merchant code as well. And scroll a little bit further on. How many bags do we need? We need 40. And that's going to give us a cost of £156 exactly. Okay, so that's what it's going to do. The handiness of this particular report is that you're not going to order 40 bags of cement straight away. That'll just be daft. You order it as you need it. However, with this particular thing, with this particular report, what you can do is you can have it broken down and go, okay, then we've calculated for 40 bags of cement on this particular job. We're not going to order 40, we're going to order 10. If we need more, we can go out, we can get more from our supplier. Brilliant. If you end a job and you've only ordered, say, 32 bags of cement, okay, that means where the software's quantified 40 for you, and you've been able to get away with just using 32, you saved yourself 8 times £3.90, which will work out as just what, 31 quid? I mean, it's not much, but it's about for you guys on site at the end of a job. Okay, so these things can happen and go forward, but it's doing that for everything for you as well. Okay, so facing bricks, We need 2,314 facing bricks. Okay, so you've got that as well. If you wanted to have a look at the materials used, it's now breaking it down by a build phase for us. So the drainage, everything from our 20-ton tipper. If we didn't want to use that, we could use something else. But then we've also got ground workers in there. We're calculating for our disc cutters as well, plats piping, trench rammers, and so on as well. Okay. At the very end, you've then got the quote for the main estimate. And this is what you're going to be able to hand over to your client at the very end if you want to. Okay, it's entirely up to you. So this quote's going to say, okay, single story extension for client not provided. We didn't populate the details. On the right hand side, you can see that it's just referencing this. Okay, if I wanted to add in a company logo, I can just click include logo. I can browse for the logo, place it on the page where I want it to be placed, and then I don't have to worry about that ever again. Okay, scrolling down, this page on the right hand side will change with what page I'm looking at. So we now have an introductory statement that we can include a letterhead. Okay, we can change all this feature writing as well. We've then got the summary of the job, so site setup all the way through to cleaning, and the cost of this job at the moment is coming in at £72,987.32. That's a lot more likely. Okay, if you're going to be sending this quote as a PDF, okay, we tell you to click this box here, show summary after breakdown. It takes this page and sends it right to the back of the quote. Okay, so that way then they have to read through your quote to get to the cliff notes, as it were. Okay. From there, we can then go down. We've got site setup. Site setup's a ridiculous cost anyway because we put in a stupid amount of COVID-19 restrictions in there. Okay. But we've got COVID control costs as well. But the software's going to be broken down something like, your quote's going to be broken down something like this. So it's going to be a heading, an image, a brief description. We're going to tell your client about some of the materials that we're going to be using. Okay. And then it's going to give you a final quote at the very end as well, a final cost. Now, I'll get to your question in a second, Matt. Okay, 2 ticks. What you can do is if you don't like this, you can come over to the build phases and you can take out the images if you don't want them. You can change whether or not you're showing any of the materials. Now, we're not telling your client about who you're getting it from and how much it's costing you. We're just telling them that for the structural concrete, we're going to be using Ready Mix Concrete Gen 1. And essentially, that's just purely to tell your client something more than anything, really, just to make them feel a little bit more special. But you might not like that, so you can hide all that. You can apply the changes. So your foundations now look like this. We also tell your client when the building inspector is going to be on site and if it's going to charge them more money. Okay, so what we're saying here is excavate for foundations using mechanical plant if required and cast foundations. Please note that building control officer will inspect the foundations prior to concreting and may require changes to the foundation depth and construction. Variations for additional excavation, trench support and concrete, etc. will incur additional costs. So if the building inspector came on site and said, by the way, you're going to have to go deeper and it's going to cost you about £1,000. Okay, well, they wouldn't say that. You just know that in the back of your mind. You can go to the client and go, by the way, you need to pay us an extra £1,000 for foundation depth. And they might go, oh, no, you never said anything about that. And you can easily point back to the quote and say, actually, if you look back to the foundations, we say that it will incur additional costs if it's necessary for us to go deeper. Okay, so you can do that as well. I got a question come through saying, can you input watermarks, borders, etc. to this quote that gets sent out? Now, essentially, what I would say to you is don't export this to your own Word documentation, because the processes that we've got in place for you to be able to add in certain things like watermarks and headers and footers, borders, any additional images as well, it's going to be a right pain compared to Word by itself. Okay, don't get me wrong, you can do it all in here. All right, so you can select paragraphs, you can just go straight into the main settings and you can add in all different type of fonts, previews. You can add in all the information that you need. But personally, from my point of view, and if I ever did this on a one-to-one demonstration and anybody asked me that, I would immediately just go straight to the top. I would export it to something that I am very much well aware of using. Plus, you've already got all your templates probably installed on Word anyway, so don't do your job twice if it's already there at the end of the day. So that's what I would do personally, Matt. But you can do it in here if you wanted to. Once you're happy with your quote, you can go right down to the very bottom. You've got the acceptance of the estimate, something for you and your client to sign and date, and then we've got a second one for you and your client to sign and date as well. And that way then you both have each other's signatures. Okay. Now this is not a legally binding contract. Okay, this is more of a gentleman's agreement, as it were. But if you wanted to go on to get a legally binding contract, we do have a software package as well that can help you out if you want to. Okay, and then you can end it with your terms and conditions. All right, and that's where your payment terms and all that can be. And that, everyone, is Estimator Express in a nutshell. Do you have any final questions? Can you trial before you buy? Absolutely. So we offer a 14-day trial for the software, and it's 14 days from the day of installation. Okay, so what I would do is essentially, for the deals that I was talking about, if you were going to be trialing the software, I'd try and get it installed ASAP. Okay, have a play around with it, give us a call. We'll treat you as if you own the software, so you have full access to the technical team as well, and we will help you out with any of your questions or queries. Okay, me included. But if you're happy with what you've seen, what we can do is I can give you a call tomorrow, and I can happily go through, or I can get my colleagues to get in contact with you as well if you're speaking to somebody else within the business. And what we can do there is we can make sure that you've got all the processes, maybe talk to you about some other deals as well, as you have come to the demonstration and you are making a quick decision. So we do kind of incentivize as well, as it were. Okay, but we can do that on the phone. So I'm going to be giving those that have asked for a call back a call tomorrow. Okay, not a problem at all. But no, everybody, thank you ever so much for your dedication and your time this evening. I do really appreciate it. It's great to be able to see so many people actually attend these. But thank you ever so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Cheers.